It's a topic that I'm sure will spark no debate whatsoever. Our preseason top 25 right here on the Gridiron Expert. Ranking the top 25 is difficult for any analyst, but last year our preseason top 25 was fairly accurate, so we decided to take another stab at it for 2019, and it's no surprise to see the reigning national champion, the Clemson Tigers, up at number 1 over the likes of Alabama, who they defeated in the national championship 44-16. Some may disagree, saying that the Crimson Tide should be above the Tigers here, but in my mind, Clemson is going to be even better than they were last year when they dismantled the Tide in that national championship game. So they get the edge for our number 1 spot in our preseason top 25, followed by Alabama, and then what I think is the second best team in the SEC right now in the Georgia Bulldogs. The king of the SEC East could be challenged later on by Florida, who we'd have down here at number 8, but right now Georgia, despite losing Holloman at wide receiver, their top returning wide receiver, is still going to be a dangerous threat in the SEC and on the national stage. Are primed for another college football playoff run. Nearly made it last year before losing to Alabama in the SEC title game, but Kirby Smart has his Bulldogs team on the right track. Number 4, coming in at Oklahoma. Now, some people think maybe LSU should be there, maybe Ohio State, but Oklahoma, they lose Baker Mayfield 2 years ago. They lose Kyler Murray after this past season when he won the Heisman Trophy. Now they bring in another star transfer in Jalen Hurts, the previous quarterback at Alabama, lost the job to Tua Tagovailoa. Lincoln Riley has really seen growth in his offense over the past 2 seasons with the Sooners. I expect it to be even better this year with another solid transfer quarterback in Jalen Hurts and what could possibly be an improved defense as well. Lincoln Riley has proved all the doubters wrong in his first couple years with the Sooners. He has gotten them to the college football playoff both times, and I expect him to maybe be a return trip for the Sooners if they can get past our number 10 team down here in the Texas Longhorns. Number 5, LSU, probably the biggest threat to Alabama in the SEC West. They were just voted by ESPN as the most likely team to take care and beat the Crimson Tide in 2019. Now, of course, as we all know, that game will be at Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa. So that's going to make the job a little bit more difficult for LSU, but nonetheless, they are still a top 5 team. That defense going to be dangerous once again, but we always talk about their defense. The offense is going to get a lot more attention as well. Joe Burrow expected to take some major strides forward in his second year at the helm as quarterback for the Tigers. Then we have Ohio State at 6, Notre Dame at 7. We mentioned Florida at number 8, and then Michigan and Texas rounding out our top 10. Now, some people disagree with Michigan being ranked so high, and I'm not fully jumping on the bandwagon for the Wolverines yet. I'm still waiting to see if Jim Harbaugh can finally break through and win the big-time games. But this is the year that if Michigan wants to win the Big Ten, wants to make the college football playoff, this is the year they have to do that. That they're taking care of an Ohio State team that I do have ranked at number 6 and brings in Justin Fields, but the new era for the Buckeyes, new quarterback, a new head coach. I know they promoted Ryan Day from within, but still, this is the year that if Michigan wants to win it all and get to the college football playoff and wants to finally beat Ohio State, it's got to be this year, and I think they can actually do that. Michigan, Shea Patterson returns at quarterback for them. They did lose a lot of star power on the defensive side of the ball, but Jim Harbaugh has repeatedly rebuilt that defense year in and year out. Michigan going to be one of the top teams in the Big Ten, and I think it is a race between Ohio State and Michigan in that Big Ten East division. So it's going to be very exciting to see how that plays out. Notre Dame coming in at 7. We mentioned they're going to be an independent, as we all know. Ran the table last year, went undefeated before falling to Clemson in the college football playoff. Their schedule this year, much tougher. They have to go on the road to Michigan. They have to go on the road to Georgia and on the road to Stanford, who we have ranked as our final team in the top 25. So the schedule going to be much more difficult for the Fighting Irish. Not saying it's impossible for Brian Kelly and his squad, but it's going to be very, very difficult. Now, they're coming in at number 7 here. And then we have Texas rounding out the top 10, as we mentioned. Now, a lot of people like Michigan aren't buying into the Texas hype. Now, they had to replace a lot of starters on the defensive side of the ball, and that's going to be a big-time question mark for the Longhorns. The offense is going to be fine. Solid wide receivers. They have Sam Ehlinger, one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12. He can not only do it through the air, but he can do a little bit on the ground as well. So the offense is not a concern for the Longhorns, but can the defense step it up? They have a major test in Week 2 going up against our number 5 team in LSU. Very well could be a top 10 showdown in Week 2 in Austin. If they can upset the Tigers there, then you will know that this Texas team is for real and they are officially back. So that's going to be remain to be seen. But Tom Herman and his Longhorns have very, very high expectations in 2019. So that rounds out our top 10, which is obviously what everybody kind of looks forward to seeing who the top 10 is. But of course, as we mentioned, every time we do our rankings, 11 through 25 matter. Those rankings matter too. We have Oregon coming in at 11, followed by Washington, the two teams that I think are the top teams in the Pac-12 right now, and the winner of that game in Washington could very well be the representative in the Pac-12 championship game. Of course, we have Utah down here at number 17, who some people think should be ranked higher, but keep in mind, last year they lost Tyler Huntley, their quarterback, and Zach Moss, and still were able to make the Pac-12 championship game and nearly beat Washington in that game in a defensive slugfest, losing 10-3. So the Pac-12, a conference that I think those are your three elite teams there, Oregon, Washington, and Utah, and I think they're going to kind of beat up on each other. If the Pac-12 wants to get a contender in the college football playoff, I think it's going to come between Oregon and Washington here. Right now, we give Oregon the edge with the star power they brought back on offense, 10 returning starters, including one of the best quarterbacks in the nation in Justin Herbert, and a defense that Mario Cristobal has recruited extremely well on. That game in Washington is going to be huge, not only for the Pac-12 title implications, but for college football playoff implications as well. Penn State having a rough month on the recruiting trail, but James Franklin, I never want to doubt him as a head coach, has a couple questions at the quarterback position, has a lot of shoes to fill, but still coming in at number 13 for the Nittany Lions, still going to be a contender, and very well could shape who plays in the Big Ten title game if they can upset Ohio State or Michigan. Texas A&M, a team that's getting a lot of hype this year. Jimbo Fisher in year 2 has people expecting maybe 9 or 10 wins in College Station. Now, I don't know if I'm going to go that far yet, but because of how difficult that schedule is, of course, getting to host Alabama, but having to go on the road to play our number 1 team in the country, Clemson, who they nearly beat in College Station last year, but going on the road is a completely different scenario. But Texas A&M coming in at number 14, a team that has such a brutal schedule, but if they can win some of those tough games, could certainly be a college football playoff contender. Iowa State coming in at 15, a team that I've repeatedly said I think is the third best team in the Big 12 behind Oklahoma and Texas. And like I've mentioned with Texas A&M, like I've mentioned with Penn State, Iowa State has Big 12 title hopes of their own, but could very well shape who plays in it if they can upset the likes of Oklahoma or Texas. So Brock Purdy and this team, I know they lost David Montgomery at running back. I know they lost Hakeem Butler at wide receiver, but I have very high expectations for the Cyclones in 2019, especially with a very young quarterback. So no one's going to be sleeping on the Cyclones this year. They did 2 years ago. They partially slept on them last year. No one will take them for granted in 2019. How about Syracuse, though? Coming in at 16, we have them. Everybody thinks that because they lost Eric Dungey that they're done. That 10-win season last year was an absolute fluke. And I don't think they're going to repeat with 10 wins this season, but I do believe that Dino Babers is certainly building something with the Orange. Tommy DeVito is absolutely the real deal, had plenty of experience last year leading the Orange to a couple wins when Eric Dungey was out with an injury. Syracuse very well could be the toughest threat to Clemson in the ACC this season. And luckily for the Orange, they host that game in the Carrier Dome in Week 3. Auburn coming in at number 18, above the likes of Central Florida and Army, an independent and a Group of 5 team. I'm not solely buying into the Auburn hype, but I do believe that they will be ranked in the top 25 to kick off the season. Of course, that will be eye candy. Of course, a top 25 matchup against Oregon in Week 1 will be very appealing to the eye, but Auburn has a lot of questions at quarterback. Who's going to start? Will it be Bo Nix? Will it be Joey Gatewood? Will it be somebody else? Gus Malzahn said he's going to return to being the offensive play caller. The defense, absolutely phenomenal. The defensive line is going to be one of the best in the SEC, maybe even one of the best in the country. That's why Auburn gets the nod at number 18 here. But if they can't beat Oregon in Week 1, you can bet your money that Gus Malzahn will certainly be on the hot seat very, very early on in 2019, and the schedule will not be getting any easier from there. UCF coming in at number 19. They lose Mackenzie Milton. That's not a problem. They got Brandon Wimbush, the transfer from Notre Dame. And also they have Dario Mack Jr., who started in that Fiesta Bowl loss against LSU, the loss that snapped their 26-game winning streak for the Knights. But Josh Heupel doing a phenomenal job down there, continuing the success and the foundation that Scott Frost had built there before he left for Nebraska. UCF certainly will be ranked in the top 25 to kick off the season. They are slightly ahead of Army, a team that I was super impressed with last year. What Jeff Monken has done with the Knights has been unbelievable. 10 wins 2 years ago, 11 wins last year, and they are certainly on track to win get double-digit wins in 2019 this season. And they have a very intriguing date against our number 9 team in Michigan early on in the season. Keep in mind, Army nearly beat Oklahoma last year, took them to overtime on the road. Maybe they could do the same against a Michigan team that's certainly getting a lot of hype. But Jeff Monken and Kelvin Hopkins, their quarterback, are doing phenomenal things at West Point, and their schedule is so favorable, with the exception of that Michigan game, that they very well could win 10 or 11 more games in 2019 and contend for a New Year's Six bowl berth. Our final five here, we have Washington State coming in at 21. They lose Gardner Minshew. They lose a couple other key pieces, but Mike Leach is an offensive guru. He's an offensive genius. And if they bring in Gage Gubrud at quarterback, they should be just fine. They will once again contend in the Pac-12, not going to have as great of a season as they did last year, not going to be college football playoff contenders like they were last year, but once again will be a threat to the likes of Oregon and Washington State, Utah, so forth and so on. Even Stanford as well, who we have down at 25 here. And once you get past probably about the top 15, it becomes very difficult to rank these teams in the top 25. You know, there are teams that are contenders, teams that deserve to be in, and there are a couple teams that we left out here that people will probably disagree, like Iowa, maybe Nebraska. So a couple Big Ten teams that maybe people think should be in the top 25 that we didn't feel should be in there right now. But it becomes very difficult once you get past the top 15. We have Virginia coming in at 22nd, a team that I'm extremely high on. What Bryce Perkins is going to do at quarterback this year, you better watch out. A dual threat quarterback, poised for an even better year than he had last year. Bronco Mendenhall and the Cavaliers looking to make an ACC title appearance and more than likely face off against Clemson. But they have a very, very talented team this year. Last year, ended the season with a 28-0 victory over South Carolina in the Belk Bowl. They're going to carry that momentum all the way into 2019, and no one wants to take the Cavaliers for granted. And then you have Wisconsin, Northwestern, and Stanford. So back-to-back Big Ten teams closing out with the Pac-12. Wisconsin, why are they in here was this guy named Jonathan Taylor. It's also a coach named Paul Chryst. Last year was an utter disappointment for the Badgers, but I do believe that they're going to turn the ship around in 2019 and contend for a spot in the Big Ten title game. It wasn't pretty last year. Started off number 4, lost to BYU, and that derailed their entire season. Yes, they have a quarterback battle going on there, but I do believe that they're going to work that out. Wisconsin gets the slight edge of getting in the top 25, followed by Northwestern, a team that brings in a new quarterback in Hunter Johnson from Clemson. They replaced Clayton Thorson, going to be just fine at the quarterback position, and Northwestern, the reigning Big Ten West Division champions. And so they very well could be looking for a return spot in the Big Ten title game. And had they done better in non-conference last year, would have been ranked much higher and maybe even found themselves in a better bowl game than they were last year. So Northwestern, Pat Fitzgerald get the 24th spot, and then Stanford closing out the top 25, a perennial top 25 team under David Shaw. Didn't end the season too great last year. Weren't necessarily in national title contention, playoff contention last year like they have been in years past. But Stanford, a team you never want to sleep on, and with a very talented quarterback and experienced quarterback in KJ Costello, one of the more veteran quarterbacks in the Pac-12. They're certainly not a team you want to sleep on, and a team that could very well pull off a handful of upsets in the conference this season. So there you have it. Our preseason top 25. Regardless of where you look at some of these preseason magazines, you look at ESPN, you look at CBS, everybody's going to have a different top 25, but in the end, the only one that matters is that AP poll that comes out right before the season starts in August. And of course, we'll have a video breaking that down as one of our favorite times of the year. But this is our preseason top 25. Tell us in the comments below, do you agree or disagree with these rankings? Who should be ranked higher? Who should be ranked lower? Who should be in these rankings that we don't have listed here? We want to hear from you. Also, we want to hear from you on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Go there and sign up for our newsletter at the bottom of the page, and even subscribe to our website. Also, sign up for our expert picks. There, for a low one-time fee, you can get all of our spread picks for the entire 2019 season, including the postseason. That's 150 spread picks for a great low price. Join the countless others that have already signed up for that, and we hope to see you over there. And guys, as always, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Stay tuned for more. Our predictions start on Thursday, and you're not going to want to miss any single one of those. So as always, thank you for watching. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time here on The Gridiron Expert.